Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're so sorry for the technical difficulties, but my name is Vivian, and on behalf of Crafted for Action, welcome to the June 19,
Oh my
2025
God. Turn
215
off my
session.
camera. I don't know how to get out of the studio. Hey guys, I'm Jen. I'm the
Okay, I'm going to
founder.
remove you. All right, thank
We
you,
were
Jen.
having some technical difficulties. Can you remove me from the stream though?
Yes, I got you.
Okay,
Thank you so
good.
much. All right.
Bye guys.
Live TV.
All right.
This is how it goes.
Never a dull moment. Once again, thank you so much for being here. Our June 19, 2025 215 session is called United We Stand, Divided We Fail, How to Be an Ally at Work and at Leisure with Tara Nurin. So I am just going to turn it over because we are already a little short on time. So Tara, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. I just want to make sure we are not still having audio issues. Somebody just commented that we were getting an echo, so let me know, okay? We'll work on that if that's the case. Hey, so I'm really honored to be here with all of you on Juneteenth, so cheers. Just a very quick word about who I am. I am a longtime journalist covering food and beverage. I'm an author. I wrote the book, A Woman's Place is in the Brew House, and I am also a workplace well-being strategist in the food and beverage industry. Sounds perfect. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you. So we are going to talk about allyship today. Allyship. It was dictionary.com's word of the year in 2021. The definition is the status or role of a person who advocates and actively works for the inclusion of a marginalized group, not as a member of that group, but in solidarity. Also, I should mention, because we started late, I'm probably going to talk kind of quickly. Shoot me a comment if you need me to slow down, all right? So like I said, today we're going to talk about why and how to be an ally. We're going to discuss topics like discrimination and microaggression. So if you need to take a break, please, of course, do so. Take care of yourself. I'm going to show you that building and supporting a diverse team is the right thing to do, not just for society, but for your business as well. But before we do that, let's get into the right mindset. Let's close our eyes if you're not running any heavy equipment at the moment, and remember or imagine an uncomfortable moment when we felt alone, isolated, or foolish. Maybe you went to a networking event and didn't know anybody, for instance. Now imagine nobody speaks your native language. You're the only person of your race or religion or gender. You may not, in this case, know quite how to fit in. Your cultural expectations of how to act may be different from everybody else's. At this point, you'd be really grateful for a friend or a kind stranger, wouldn't you? What you would want is an ally. But when we have unconscious privilege in a situation, it can be hard to recognize others' lack of social standing or discomfort. Forbes magazine explains, every single one of us has some form of privilege, such as being able-bodied or college-educated or neurotypical. Privilege is usually invisible to those who have it unless they're working to become actively aware. What privilege do you think the designer of this restaurant probably had? They're likely privileged as, well, we're assuming they're an able-bodied person, and that likely gave them unconscious bias against people in wheelchairs. My mom actually uses a walker, and I always forget not to take her to crowded Manhattan restaurants on weekend nights. The staff loves me when I do that. But that's my privilege and my unconscious bias. So let's take a moment here to think or write down 5 privileges you have. I'm going to pause for a sec. If you want to put them in the chat, please feel free. If you just want to think about them privately, do that too. And I'm going to fix this stupid earbud that's not staying in my ear. All right, well, while you're continuing to think about that, and again, share if you'd like to, I'll say that some of my privileges include that I'm cis, I'm straight, I'm a native English speaker, and I have a really supportive family. And if you hadn't noticed, I'm white, which unfortunately gives me unearned privilege in our country. Two ways I don't have privilege in the American mainstream: I'm an atheist and I'm Jewish, which, despite what people may think, makes me a potential target for suspicion, discrimination, and hate crimes. Study after study show that when people suffer from bias, it can create a tremendous amount of stress and low morale. Stressed and demoralized people, it's no surprise, inevitably become disengaged people. In the workplace, Gallup has found more than 2/3 of American workers are either not engaged or worse, actively disengaged from their jobs. And maybe some of you are feeling this right now. Across the world, disengaged workers cost $8.8 trillion, or 9%, ready? 9% of global GDP. Why? For starters, disengaged employees are more likely to call in sick or quit. And this cost of absenteeism, lost productivity, turnover, and sick care cost global businesses $300 billion. What does that number mean? The entire US brewing industry is valued at $100 billion in annual sales. However, the world famous McKinsey Consulting Group says the most diverse companies are now more likely than ever to outperform less diverse peers on profitability. By how much? 36%. That's a staggering number. Harvard Business Review says studies show that well-managed diverse groups outperform homogeneous ones and are more committed, have higher collective intelligence, and are better at making decisions and solving problems. Oh, that sounds like good business success to me. But diversity in and of itself only gets us so far. It only sticks if employees from diverse backgrounds feel welcome at work and associated events. You don't have to be a manager to help make this happen. No matter what your job title is or your industry, you can help create a culture of inclusion for everybody, and you can do it fairly easily by being an ally and encouraging your peers at all levels of the organization to do the same. So, how do we become an ally? Perhaps the first way to be an ally day in and day out is to learn to spot and avoid microaggressions. The American Psychological Association defines microaggressions as the everyday verbal, nonverbal, and environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely on their marginalized group membership. So a female brewer, for instance, what are some things a female brewer might be told that could be microaggressions? Well, she might be told by a prospective employer that she's going to leave to have a baby, or this one I love, she's not hot enough to sell beer. Sexist beer names, labels, and advertising are also microaggressions and gatekeeping because they tell women this beer is for men. Even terms that we use every day, like man up, man a table instead of staffing a table, congressman, or even I've been called out a little bit for this one, you guys, to a mixed gender group signify that men are stronger or that they're the default sex. Maybe you've heard that white men statistically, this has been scientifically shown, statistically hog the floor and perhaps meaning to tend to take credit for other people's ideas. Whether or not you're leading the meeting, you can stop this by acknowledging the interrupter, then redirecting the conversation back to the original speaker, saying, yeah, I really liked Pedro's idea too, and I'm glad you did as well. Or directly asking for opinions from the overlooked voices in the room. So let's take a look at a nonverbal microaggression that can pop up in the workplace. Are you putting together a committee? Are you inviting judges to a competition? Do not let me see your website look like this. Make sure to include women and other represented people in your activities. I know the founder of this conference, and when I saw this, I called him, and I didn't make him wrong. I said, hey, may I introduce you to some speakers who are highly qualified, who are women and people of color? for your next conference, or maybe even for this one, he was receptive and amenable to the idea. So what if you witness or think that you might have accidentally perpetrated a microaggression? Yeah, I see you. You've seen many websites that look like this. And I got to throw in an anecdote. There's a kind of an unofficial competition that takes place in San Francisco every year. And every year I see people post pictures of it on social, and every year it is the same old white dudes. And I've actually called out the competition founder about this, and then I see the same white dudes again. Yeah, I hear you. Aggravating. So yeah, I mean, again, like, don't call the person a schmuck. That tends not to go over well, but you could be like, hey, I'm a judge. I live in the East Bay. Can I come judge? Or, my cousin lives in the East Bay and he's a judge, etc. You get my idea. That's kind of calling in versus calling out, right? So, hold on, I lost my last. Oh, okay. So what if you witnessed or think you might have accidentally perpetrated a microaggression yourself? We start by noticing. So this is a pretty vulnerable picture that I share sometimes of me in 2021 when I was not in a good place. So we start by noticing. We start by noticing when we or other people are exhibiting signs of tension. So what are some signs of tension in others? If you look at the picture, my body language looks pretty stiff. Yeah, I'm holding the camera for the selfie, but, we can look for clenched fists. And what I see when I look at my face is a lot of pain in my eyes. I'm like wincing, right? Kind of flinching. You can look for people kind of fidgeting, tapping their fingers nervously, or closed body language, right? Like leaning away from somebody or crossing their arms. Those are also tells. Now, what about recognizing it in ourselves? One way is to check in with your body. If you can, close your eyes right now and notice where you might be clenching. Check your jaw, your fists. Do you have butterflies in your stomach? I had no idea until I started doing this a couple months ago that I do get butterflies in my stomach a lot. I never noticed them because I'd never checked in with my body. Are you hunching your shoulders? These are signals that your body sends you to put you on alert. So what should you do if you notice these signs after an encounter?
If you're not sure what to do, ask yourself, is there an action I can take that is responsible, even if it's not perfect? If so, do that.
A lot of experts say you should speak privately to the offended party to ask A, if they were offended, and if they want some support before you consider taking any action. Thank you. I don't know your real name, the experience, but yes, you didn't realize that you were clenching your teeth. Yeah, good. I do that when I'm falling asleep a lot. I like check in with my body. I'm like, ooh, my fists are clenched. Let me release. So if you do decide to speak up in the moment, here are a few solid places to start. And I love the expressions on these guys' faces. You can also use these tips if you yourself are the victim of a microaggression. First, like I said a minute ago, you want to try to avoid making the offender feel defensive. You can ask innocent sounding questions like, what'd you mean by that? Or say, I'm sure you didn't mean to come across this way, but, or you can gently say, not cool, dude, or, yo, that's not funny. Make the statement wrong, not the person, and talk about your own feelings, not somebody else's, by saying, hey, that comment makes me uncomfortable, not that comment was offensive to that person over there, right? Making sense? So if you commit a microaggression, and we all have, and we all will again, your immediate reaction to somebody pointing it out might be to get defensive or annoyed, right? Or make an excuse like, well, I didn't mean it that way. And maybe you didn't, but that's not really the point. You create a more supportive environment for everybody, yourself included, when you stop to acknowledge how the other person feels and that you've impacted them, even if you didn't intend to. If you haven't heard this intent versus impact, you're going to start hearing it more and more. That's a very important distinction. So if somebody tells you you've offended them, take a breath. Literally take a breath. This might stop you from blurting out something to make the situation worse. Trust me, I speak from experience. Ask the person to explain if you need them to. Use active listening skills to really listen to what the person's saying. Then consider repeating back what you think you heard, just to make sure you're not misunderstanding. Like, okay, what I heard you say is, what I think I heard you say is. Apologize and say you'll work to become more conscious of that particular cultural blind spot. And then thank them for sharing their perspective and tell them you're happy to talk about it again in the future if they'd like to. Then try not to go back to your desk and curse them out under your breath and wish everybody would stop being so damn woke all the time. I mean, yes, sure, you can totally do that. I've disagreed with a few things I've been called out for myself. But, this is a big but, don't let that stop you from learning from the experience. You know, just a side note real quick, there are things that I've been called out for that years later, I was like, oh, I get it now. So allow yourself to be open to learning today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now. Even if you're not the one doing the microaggressing, you can still deepen the wound by gaslighting. Gaslighting doesn't have to be as obvious or devious as you may think. Gaslighting is psychological manipulation, sometimes unintentional, to make somebody feel like their feelings are stupid or that they're crazy. You probably don't consider yourself a gaslighter, but if you invalidate somebody's feelings by saying, oh, he's just like that, or I'm sure she didn't mean it that way, you're causing a victim to doubt their own memory or experience, and that is, by definition, gaslighting. If you're part of the dominant population or a leader among your peers, it can go a really long way toward helping out an individual and hopefully improving workplace culture when you step in and speak out against this kind of behavior. An already marginalized colleague has a lot more to lose by defending themselves than you as an ally might. And no, you shouldn't wait for somebody else to say something. That someone else usually doesn't. So what is an example of this? I was speaking at a Master Brewers conference about 2 years ago, and there was a very highly respected white brewer in the room, known around the country, a man. And after I was done and I took some questions, he stood up and basically started engaging the audience and explaining why all of these things we were talking about were so important to him. So that's what that can look like. You can also check in and stick up for people by becoming a sponsor or a mentor. And how do you do that? You pick a talented new person who doesn't look like you and share as many opportunities as possible. You can say things like, hey, make sure you're at this event, or ask your manager about this, or you should apply for this promotion. Then be sure to introduce and speak highly of them with people, to people with influence. All of what we're talking about works in life as well, not just on the job, obviously. And we can use what we've learned about checking in with ourselves and others when we're out doing our thing. So whether you're working or socializing, observe who's around and what they're doing, and be sensitive if people are responding poorly to anybody. Let's say you're at a bar, out for the night. You might follow that person to the bathroom and ask if they're okay. If you don't work at that establishment, it might not be a good idea to directly confront the person, the perpetrator, we'll just call them. But in that case, you might want to just let one of the staff members or manager know to keep an eye on the situation. I'm sure, well, hopefully they'll really appreciate it. If you do work at a bar, you can get free bystander training, intervention training from the Safe Bar Network. An organization I love and work for. So contact me for more information if you're interested in learning more about that. If you're part of an organization, you can start practicing all of these tools where the stakes may be lower than doing it at work right away. For instance, I've been a member of the Pink Boot Society for Women in NBs and Fermentation for 15 years. And though we are working incredibly hard to diversify, we're still a majority cis white bunch. And at the international conference 3 years ago, I spoke, moderated a panel, signed books, and hung out with my friends who are on the board and on the organizing committee. Objectively, I was an insider, but I didn't really see myself that way, right? For 3 days, I'd been too intimidated to introduce myself to one particular Black beer educator, and I spent the whole time worrying that a trans acquaintance of mine didn't like me because she seemed standoffish. I believe that they probably would have appreciated some active engagement on my part, even if they weren't feeling outsidery, right? Like, who's going to reject some kindness from an acquaintance, right? At the risk of sounding, I hope I don't sound condescending or in anything by saying this, but I tried to make up for my lack of interaction by afterwards sending both of them a warm email telling them how glad I'd been to see them. I'm better in writing than face-to-face sometimes. I had been inspired by Pink Boots founder Terry Ferendorf's reminder in the final speech of the conference that even though I might be uncomfortable getting out of my comfort zone as a member of the in-group, it was my obligation, my duty to acknowledge my position and actively help include and act like an ally to those who may not be or feel like they're in the in-group. What Terry said was this: know that you have a responsibility to seek out those who society has overlooked, undervalued, underrepresented, pushed aside, or cast out, and welcome them here. Be the solution. And I try to model her words every single day. Cheers. And with that, I would love to take some questions, comments. I think we have to do it through the chat because I think we can't bring you in live in this format. But yeah, please, or, best practices. If you have yourself or seen somebody be a good ally, tell us. I'm always looking for great examples that I and other people can learn from. I'll just wait a moment or two. I know most people tend to watch these things later on recorded while they're working. What else can I ask? Can I tell you? Well, okay, you know what? While we're waiting, I'll give an example of how I'm being a mentor right now, just if it sparks any ideas for you. There is a Black South African documentary filmmaker named Malope, Obakang Malope. She has produced a 36-minute film about the older African women in villages, the older women in villages across South Africa, and this is true throughout all of Africa. These women are still brewing beer the ancient way, the way that it's been brewed for thousands and thousands of years, and they are almost the only ones preserving this tradition. So she's put together a documentary about it, and we know each other just as acquaintances, but she has come to New York for 6 weeks to promote her movie. I was in New York at the same time. We had breakfast, and she told me, I have an opportunity to come down and screen the movie in Philly, but I don't have the money to get down there. And I was like, dude, I can bring her down to Philly round trip for like $65. I can totally swing that. This person can't. Apparently in South Africa, average teacher or police officer salary is $250 a month. Yes, good call. I will share a link to Safe Bars trainings. Thank you. I will do that. So she said, yes, I would love to come down to Philly. So I paid for a trip down to Philly. She stayed with me. I drove her around everywhere. I introduced her to a couple other brewers. Now she's coming back in a couple days to screen her movie 2 more times. I'm helping promote the screenings and her through my social. So that's a way that I'm using my platform to elevate somebody else who didn't have the network. or the resources to do it for herself. So that's an example. Okay, share a link to the Safe Bars training. It is Safe Bar Network. I forgot the link. You know what it is? safebarnetwork.org. Now, I am not promoting it for any business reason. I genuinely believe in it. But when I refer people, I get paid. So if you're interested in doing it, please let me introduce you to the people so I can get a little money. Let's see. Here it is. And I think, oh, I couldn't post it for some reason. Yeah, it's not posting. It's safebarnetwork.org. And, oh, you know what I meant? Hold on. Here I've got my contact info slide. So if you'd like to contact me, please send me an email. I don't see any other questions, so I think we can probably wrap up. I'm really happy that you all have joined us. And stay tuned. The next session is at 3:15 my time. So let's say 15 after the hour, wherever you are.
Yeah, Tara, you did great. Thank you for all the information. I was over here listening intently. When you were talking about more inclusive verbiage, that is something that I am always very conscious about. And I think it really also depends on the industry in which you work at. I work at a university, and so it's always in the forefront of being inclusive of how we speak to people. Right. And so, and for people who don't work in those type of environments, it's important that we're able to hear these types of conversations like outside of work. So thank you for that. I'm always on my kids too, when they're like, come on guys, I'm like, do you see a guy over here? Like what are we talking about right now? So, but yeah, thank you so much just for being here and sharing your time and your space with us. And for everyone who's here right now, like Tara was saying, we have another session coming up. I said I am in the Midwest, and so when I was talking to Tara earlier, I said we're going to start right at, I think I said 1:15 or something, and she's like, whoa. So it's going to be 3:15 is the next session. So you all please stick around for that. It's going to be champagne marketing on a beer budget, how to stretch every dollar. And if you're like me, you need that information. So Tara, did you have any last thoughts or anything you wanted to add before we go? I see your book up there. Did you want to talk about your book really quickly?
Oh, sure. Thanks. So right, that's the cover of my book. A Woman's Place is in the Brew House. It is the first book to exclusively chronicle the entire history of women in beer, starting, according to my trusted sources, 200,000 years ago. The next time you hear somebody tell you that beer was invented in the Middle Ages in Germany, you can tell them that that is not true. It was almost definitely discovered and brewed by South African women 200,000 years ago when we were hunter-gatherers. So beer is African.
Cool. And where can people buy your book if they're interested in buying your book?
Well, thanks. You can get it at all the online sellers, a brick and mortar bookstore if we're lucky. You can also buy a signed copy. Well, you can buy any copy on my website. It does cost more to get it directly through me, so I do send you to your favorite online bookseller. But if you want an autographed copy, you do need to get it from me, and that is my website, taranurin.com.
Awesome. Thank you. There was a comment that just came in. I don't know if you saw it or not. Maybe you can address that before we leave.
Sure. My former boss, this white guy, has asked that people call him head brewer instead of brewmaster. Yes, because decolonizing language matters, especially when the majority. Yep. Great example. And that, I'm glad that you said that, because that is the thing that I was going to say, Vivian, after you brought up the language again. Right. we can all work really hard to decolonize language. Like, for instance, I had heard that grandfathering something in actually comes from slavery, right? And so, but I couldn't find an alternative. I couldn't find it. So I kept asking. I would not use the word, but I would ask people who I thought would know, like, oh, what's an alternative to grandfathered? Finally, after like a year, somebody was like, legacied. Like, there you go, legacied. So yes, thanks for pointing that out, all of you. This was informative. Thank you, Annette. Yeah, 100%. And right, master is the word master. We don't say master bedroom anymore. We say what, primary bedroom or something. Yep. So good thinking. Thank you for bringing that up.
Cool. Thank you so much. As you know, we were having the tech issues earlier, and so I have to wait for Jen to come back and officially end this. But Tara, you're welcome to hop off if you would like, and we're going to figure this out. Maybe for the next one, we're going to be moving faster. So yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Tara.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Hopefully
All right,
see you next
too.
year.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Thanks to all of you, and feel free to get in contact with me. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you. And for those who are still here, I believe there is a quick 2-question survey. So Crafted for Action can kind of, hear about how the experience was for you and maybe make some changes for next time or not. And so we are just gonna wait for Jen to come on and end us and start the next one, the champagne marketing on our beer budget.